Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Behind the Screens, your favorite esports and gaming talk show here at Radio UTD. I'm Hector.
I'm Hitarth.
And I'm Adi. And today, we honestly have a pretty slow week. Not much has happened. So I want to take this moment to catch up on stuff that happened a little while ago that we didn't get to touch on last time. And the first thing I want to go over is Cyberpunk 2077. And obviously, that's a game everybody's looking forward to. CD Projekt Red has always been good about making these fantastic products. Everyone's heard of The Witcher 3, and everyone's heard that that's a super well-crafted game that has a lot of time and effort and energy put into it, and a lot of passion.
What's The Witcher 3?
Never heard of it ever. And so whenever they announced their next project, Cyberpunk 27, it's by no means new. They've announced it forever ago, but they always said that they would release the game when it was ready. They take whatever time they need. They were fine with delaying the game if it meant releasing a better product. One thing they also committed to very early on was saying that they would not do any crunch time. And for those who are not familiar, crunch is essentially when, this is a term that's used in the video game industry in terms of development, when staff usually works all sorts of overtime, like they really push themselves to the limit for the sake of delivering a better product or just to even get the base game done, usually if they're behind on time or whatever. And CD Projekt Red originally said that Cyberpunk will have no crunch. Employees can work at a comfortable pace, and there will be nothing too taxing on them. They now seem to be regaining on that. Cyberpunk is due to release in November, and it has now started to order 6-day weeks. So that's essentially the definition of crunch,
Yeah.
And it seems very weird that they're now regaining on this idea that they were pretty passionate about,
Yeah, I think that's I see it as this, they've pushed this they've delayed the launch of it several times now, and I think they've tried going that approach of not having the crunch. And now more than ever, now that everyone's aggravated that they're just okay, release the game already, I feel like they're still slightly behind, and they're okay, well, there's nothing we can do about it. And I don't like that, but at the same time, and this is not a good thing, but it is pretty norm for AAA titles that are this large scale.
Oh yeah, the one that I think of off the top of my head is Red Dead Redemption 2 had a very extensive crunch cycle.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Which sucks.
Yeah, which sucked. The Last of Us 2 also had a very extensive crunch cycle. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Hitarth. Go ahead.
No, you're good. It's just kind of thinking about what the root cause of this problem was. Whether it's actually oh, they're taking their time, and then people are oh, hey, we really want this now. So then they're okay, I guess we'll actually crunch now. Or maybe this was just bad planning on their part by saying this great esteem of not having to crunch, but because of that, it kind of directly screwed them over by making them have to crunch in the end, even worse than they could have.
I mean, they made the claim, the CD Projekt Red co-chief, executive officer Marcin Iwinski did an interview with Kotaku last year where he said that the company would be avoiding mandatory crunch and was committed to allow employees to work without overtime. So they're just we're not gonna push them too hard, there will be no crunch, there won't be overtly stress, and either this is something went wrong within that year, or maybe they're just not keeping pace, or this is just what it's sadly is for the games industry, where it's just crunch somewhat becomes required as a product is about to release.
Yeah, and I could probably say it from Hitarth and my perspective, right? We're both in the game lab production class right now, and we're making a game, and we're a couple days out from alpha, and it's a time crunch like no other, especially for the art team, because we're trying to throw everything in, and at the same time they're trying to practice obviously correct etiquette of not throwing everything in at the last second, because then it's just going to cause a ton of issues internally with different errors and such. But at the same time, it's just I feel like we've only been in class for like a month now, but at the same time, it's been like time is flying by, especially when you're doing large scale games. So
Hmm.
I think it's just inherently comes with the business, unfortunately, um, which I think COVID did not help at all with the whole process for sure.
Hmm.
But I mean, I think going into the business, it's just kind of expected, and so I think all things like taken into account, I feel like Cyberpunk did a decent job of not putting workers into overtime. Um, Considering the fact that the game is slated to release in a month. So it's not atrocious, but I do feel for the workers regardless and the employees
Yeah.
because I feel like even if they weren't working OT last time, I feel like there was definitely like very, very jam-packed weeks regardless.
I mean, I will say it's worth noting that as of the time of this recording, if you're listening to it later or seeing it live, Cyberpunk 2077 has gone gold, which means that, the main game is complete and they can start production of making physical copies.
Yep.
And so whatever like bugs are usually left over are pretty much supplemented with a day one patch. Every game has a day one patch now.
Yeah.
It's pretty much like unheard of
Yeah.
for a game to not have a day one patch now.
Yeah.
But the head of the studio for CD Projekt Red has gone on record saying that it was one of the hardest decisions that he's ever had to make, and he did say that they will be well compensated for every extra hour they put in. There's like obviously no numbers behind that, but CD Projekt Red, like, traditionally has been seen as like the upper echelon of like game studios that usually treat their workers well. They're very passionate. They're very like driven people. And like again, like The Witcher 3 was their first big kickoff, right? Like amazing game, a lot of time, effort, detail put in, and it was just a fantastic product all around. And when a game like that releases, everybody says, well, what's the next project going to be? And then Cyberpunk had already been announced by that point. Cyberpunk, I think, as of now, was announced 7 years ago,
Yeah.
for the record.
That's
Yeah, so
crazy.
which
That's
is like,
insane.
so it's been well known for a while. I think that was Cyberpunk will be like coinciding more or less with the launch of the next generation. So it was announced 2 generations ago, if you look at it that way, which is crazy to think about that they've been working on it for that long.
Wow, we're old.
Yeah. It's just crazy to me because like, and I don't know, I do have Cyberpunk on my wish list and such, and I've been keeping close tabs on it, but I don't think it's a game that I would get like at launch, right?
Yeah, single player.
Yeah, well that but like in general, it does look like if I was a Cyberpunk fan, yeah, I would be a little upset by like the I'd guess to say I'd be a little upset by the delays, but at the same time, I feel like the delays caused it to be released on the next gen console.
Yeah, that's true because originally, I believe they had a release window that was March of this year, March of
Yeah.
2020, and then that got pushed back, and I think that got pushed back again, and then
Yeah.
now, the game's finally gone gold, so it will be releasing November 19th.
Yeah, so like I feel like I mean I'd put like my whole life on the fact that they would port it to the newer console, but even then it's just like now that it's basically at least the way that I see it is it's releasing first on next gen consoles and then like a sides project of like the previous gen, if that makes sense. Like not inherent like it's not inherently made for the next gen, but like that's probably gonna be like their what they're targeting in essence.
See, actually, I disagree with that because just so much of the life cycle has been focused on the Xbox One and the PS4 generation, and I feel like that's where all their work is put into.
That's fair.
I feel like it's gonna be one of those the Last of Us scenarios because Last of Us released at the tail end of the PS3, right? And that like since it released at the tail end of it, they knew what they were working with. Like they were essentially completely optimizing whatever power of the PS3 that they have.
Yeah,
But
that's
they
fair.
released it right as the PS4 was also coming out, and I think about a year later, they released The Last of Us Remaster, which is just the next generation version of that exact same game. And what they plan on doing this time around is if you get a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox One version, you can upgrade to the next gen, the PS5 and the Series X for free. It's of no charge to you. So I feel like they did focus on making it for this generation that we're currently in, like prior to the next one releasing. And they're just, saw that the new generation's happening, got dev kits. They're like, okay, yeah, we can put this on there pretty smoothly. Like it's all basically done, and we can bump up the graphics a little bit, and then just put it on that next generation.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because like, I guess now that I think about it, since most of the development, because like this has been a game in development for a while now, so I feel like you're probably right. They're gonna have really, really solid optimization onto like the PS4, to the point where it might even like compete with the PS5 as far as like performance. Obviously not resolution or anything like that, but performance can definitely be something that's something really impressive on the PS4 comparatively to other games. I'd hope. Who knows? The game does look very, very like daunting as far as like CPU and GPU draw.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
footage of the game I've seen, it looks visually stunning with the amount of detail that they put in.
Yeah, that's why it looks really interesting to me. I like the whole futuristic vibe that it has, and it gives me similar like gameplay to like Watch Dogs Legion almost, in a way, where it's like kind of like roaming around the city and doing stuff. So I found that to be kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's more of a setting thing. I don't know how much that exactly correlates to gameplay. Because is Watch Dogs first person? I don't think it is, right? It's third
Is
person.
Cyberpunk
Right?
first person?
Cyberpunk is first person.
Oh, I didn't know that actually.
Oh, that's interesting.
Watch Dogs is not.
Yeah, Watch Dogs is third person, so I wonder how that's gonna work with Cyberpunk being first person.
Yeah, I actually do as well.
It has a massive focus on Cyberpunk being a futuristic setting. It has a lot of a focus on body modification and how you can literally customize yourself any way you want, and that's just not regarding cosmetics. That's regarding like abilities. Like one of the very early trailers showed like essentially your character is like more or less replaced a lot of their stuff with like robotics, right?
Yeah.
And so they were like getting attacked, and so they see their arm split open and a blade pop out of it. I'm just like, wow. And then they're just like, yeah, you can make that like melee stuff, handgun, shotguns, like rifles. I'm just like, what?
Yeah, I think there's a lot that's going into this game. I'd like to see how the game actually plays, like on both consoles, as well as just like how the game is in general. But I think it's like Cyberpunk fans have been in the same boat as, say, I don't even know, like Elder Scrolls fans, where it just feels like they're waiting endless amount of time for this game to release. But I feel like at the end of the day, it'll definitely be worth the wait.
See, one thing that Cyberpunk definitely has over Elder Scrolls is that CD Projekt Red has been pretty active about, like talking about their
That's
game,
true.
like giving some sort of progress.
But
like,
that's
oh hey, look
because
at this like cool new tidbit that we've
Yeah.
been working on, that kind of thing.
That's also because the game has already been like announced like release date wise. Like prior to the release of the game, there wasn't that, like the initial release date, proposed release date, there wasn't much.
Actually, yeah, there was. They started showing stuff off at E3 2018, which was, I believe it or not, they showed a teaser trailer in January 2013, and then 5 years of silence, and then E3 2018 was when they had the second trailer. But there was a media exclusive, like pre-alpha gameplay shown off.
Yes, but like think about it like this, right? Like you said, 2013 was the thing, and then 2018 is when they showed. That's a 5-year gap. If you're like kind of knocking at Elder Scrolls in a way, I would too. But like even then, that teaser was what 2-3 years ago. So I think it's still really, really early. And just like Cyberpunk, it's a game that's taken like upwards of 8 years of development in total. So
I mean that's true. Mm-hmm. The first trailer was very infamous for saying, at the end of it, the 2013 trailer was a release date, and then it just paused for a second. And it just said whenever it's ready.
Yeah.
Could
Yeah.
you imagine doing that? Could you imagine any other company, like let's say Nintendo, waiting a year to do a direct, and then they're like, yeah, here are the games coming out. They're gonna release when they're done. Could you imagine like how mad Nintendo fans would
Oh my,
be at
there
something
would,
like that?
Nintendo
it,
fans would be mad at anything.
you mean they
Me
have gotten mad
included.
at
Ah, yeah.
but it's what kind of surprises me is like looking at CD project is their main stuff up to this point has been solely focused on the Witcher franchise, right? Because 2007 was their like first game that they released was The Witcher, and after that, The Witcher 2 released in 2011. That one apparently was also very very good, and then The Witcher 3 released in 2015 to critical acclaim. And so this is their first like step that they're taking out from like the Witcher franchise and that sort of setting, and now they're just completely done a 180 where they're going to like this super like futuristic setting. Everything is modifiable. Like it's kind of crazy. Like just like based on how quote unquote limited like their portfolio is, even though there's a lot to that portfolio, even if it's small. Like how successful they are.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I we'll have to see. I think like I agree with what you're saying in general. I'm just excited for the game to come out, honestly.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I mean, I've already like heard like things here and there for like people who've gotten like to take a slight look at the game and play it for a little bit before. Hey, remember when conventions were a thing and people went to that and got to try out games ahead of time?
Yeah.
Nah, I'm
Yeah.
good.
I'm excited for Watch Dogs Legion actually more than Cyberpunk.
I'm excited for like a strange reason. Like I don't know if I'm gonna pick up the game. I know my sister is gonna be picking up the game, and I hope she has a good time with it. But I'm excited for it because just of the people that are making it. Like
That's fair.
they had like
hmm
their reputation is the reason why I'm like paying attention to this because The Witcher 3 is like one of those games. I own it. I have all the DLC. Have not played it. It's like one of those things I would love to get into. I simply don't have the time for it right now because I'm spending all of it into Genshin for some reason.
I was about to say, it's like, hold on, that's just a straight lie. And then you mentioned Genshin. I'm like, okay.
No,
At least
no,
he's
no.
honest about
No,
his
I'll call
addiction.
myself out. I will
That's
definitely call myself
understandable. That's
out.
understandable.
But just before I decided to pick up The Witcher 3 just because it looked like a cool game, I obviously did like a little digging if it was like actually worth my money. And everything I saw was always an overwhelming yes. And so when you get
yeah.
something like that, that's just on the base game, like not including the DLC. Like I was just looking at like release reviews, and those are like praising it to hell and back. So I wonder, like, is that just like did they get lucky, or is that something that they can actually consistently keep up?
That's a good point. I don't know. See, I mean, listen. I want to move this topic into something else that's kind of can they keep up kind of thing, being Fall Guys, right? We've seen this game blow up, then Among Us blowing up right after it, and now we see the Season 2 release of Fall Guys just a couple of days ago. Really simple additions to the game, I'd say, but it does spice it up a bit, adding new costumes, new games that are medieval themed into the rotation of maps. But do you think that really is enough to bring back players into the game, as it did have that huge spark when it first came out? Or do you think games like Among Us are going to take over and just kind of overshine it?
Okay, here's what I believe in regards to that. I will say, Fall Guys' initial impact was helped by a lot of things. By one, it was like a fun, cute game that was really, really accessible. It was available on PlayStation free right when it had come out. There were loads of memes about the game because, honestly, the social media manager for Fall Guys deserves an award. He's been doing an amazing job keeping up, like relevance for that game. But like when you get into Fall Guys, it is fun, especially with like friends and all that. Like the three of us have played it quite a bit. But after it loses its initial impact of like you've seen like the games that it has to try out, you've seen like the modes and the various like trials and cosmetics and all that, it kind of loses its charm and it becomes more and more repetitive.
Yeah, I agree. And so this is interesting because that's the way I initially saw it. Like before I even got it, I was like, I feel like I might get bored of it because it seems very repetitive. But at the same time, I was like, I'll give it a shot. Then we play it. It was really, really fun for like the first 15 hours, I'd say. And I wouldn't say it's boring now, but I will say it's definitely got repetitive as far as like, oh, I feel like once you get into game modes and you think mentally like, oh, this one is so like annoying or boring kind of thing, that's when you start realizing that the game is kind of You know what I mean?
No,
Where it's like,
I'll
oh,
say
this
I
game
think
mode's
it's
kind of scuffed.
yeah, that's true. But I think it's one of those things where you're still having fun, but it feels like you're just going through the motions rather
Yeah,
than like actively
yeah.
using your brain, you know?
And so I guess like thinking at it from that perspective, what do you think like makes Among Us much different from that? Is it solely the fact that it's all personality based or what?
Yeah, I think it's definitely the personality based thing, right? Because the thing about I mean, these games do have a category. They're like social deception, you know, like Mafia, Werewolf, Town of Salem. I've never personally tried Town of Salem, but thanks to talking to Hitarth, he let me know that it fits into that category.
Yep.
A lot of it is personality based, and because all that kind of stuff requires is that you get a group of people together, it's hard to ever say that it's truly dead. You
Yeah,
know?
I agree. I think it can get dead in friend groups really fast, if that makes sense, right? Like, I don't think as a whole it's gonna get dead anytime soon. But I do think like if let's say half of the friend group is like, I'm not really having that much fun with Among Us anymore, then the rest of the friend group is gonna have a hard time trying to still play the game, whether it's going to a different friend group or finding new people to play with. And don't even get me started with like the whole like random lobby queue up, because that's just disastrous. I don't even know why people would play that.
This is where I'm gonna tune it over to Hitarth in a second because he can go a bit more in depth about this. But one of the things you can do, like keep the game, those types of games interesting, is have like various mechanics like Town of Salem knows. Because didn't you mention, Hitarth, that Town of Salem has like a medic and like a seer and all that? Like if you can go into that a little bit.
Town of Salem's like entirely different just because it takes the style of Mafia and then it adds on even more roles. So
Yeah.
it gets rid of the simple behavior of, oh, you're either an innocent and maybe you have like a special innocent role, or you're just a mafia killing people in the town. Like there's werewolves, there's jesters, there's witches, there's like pyro maniacs as well. They add a whole bunch of different roles, like
Yep.
more neutral or like evil and all that stuff roles, just so like, oh, you're a town, and it encourages people to not just leave the game as a town unless you enjoy being a town.
I would love to play Town of Salem with our group, because like I think Audie would play the Jester really well, sadly.
I think
But
we
what does
enjoy
Jester
it.
do
The Jester is basically like a role where you're trying to deceive the town into killing you, and then after you're dead, you're able to hurt them in revenge.
Yeah, once you
Is that
get
what you
voted
think
out
of
by
me?
the
I
town,
mean,
Yes.
you're wrong, but
yeah, you get to kill one of the other town members. Literally anyone. You can choose anyone. You get to kill them. That's the whole goal of the Jester, is to do that.
Yeah, there's a ton of things. There's like bodyguards where every night you can like protect someone. Doctors, every night you can like heal someone, preventing them from dying, and then like
There's,
other things
there's a
like
jailer as well.
that. Yeah, there is a lot of roles. I don't know how it works with like a set number of people, but I think it's like, for instance, like bodyguard, doctor, investigator, jailer. I think they're all like under like innocent roles where they can like, they're all town technically.
They've added more, man.
And so there's like town protective,
Have
and
they?
there's town like killing.
yeah,
So-
there's
so-
like Plague Bearer, Pestilence, Juggernauts. They've
so
added
I'm assuming
more.
this is all stuff you can like enable or disable at will, right? Because I think it'd be kind of annoying if there was just way too many roles.
Well,
Yeah, there's
I
different
think
game
so.
modes.
There's different
Okay.
game modes, but like it's dependent on how many people you have. So I think like you going into the game will not know, like obviously who's on what role, but you also don't know for sure if you even have a doctor on the lobby or if you even have an escort in the lobby, kind of thing.
Oh, so does it just
It'll
give
be
you
like-
like a random set of roles?
Yes, but it'll like you'll know that there's one town protective, for instance. But under town protective, there's they could be a bodyguard, they could be a doctor, or they could be like a mayor or something like that. So they could be one of like three things, and you can
Yeah.
figure
It's
that
more
out
like-
later in the round, and you could communicate that. But like, it's basically like at the very start, there's no way of knowing exactly what roles are in the game.
So essentially, you're saying they fall into like more like classes where it's just like there's somebody who can like protect the townspeople, but can be one of three things. But you will
Exactly.
always have one of those.
Yeah, bodyguard, doctor, and crusader, and they each do different things. But yes, inherently that they have like a role in town. And then same with mafia, they'll have like a deception mafia, and then they'll also have like killing mafia. So like they're basically obviously like pretty obvious what they each do, but that's basically how the roles work. And I think like it would be really fun in our group if we get like 9 or 10 of us and we play that, because I feel like it
Yeah,
is
you need a decent amount of people.
yeah,
for it.
I do know that these lobbies can get like huge actually. I think there's actually, I could be wrong, but you can get up to like 20 people in a lobby.
Oh geez, yeah.
It's a lot, yeah, it's crazy. And it's kind of where Among Us is gonna head, because like that's kind of how Among Us started off as, like not so popular as just a very small game. And then I want to really say it just kind of got lucky that a bunch of these
I
like,
would say
more
too.
popular
Yeah.
content creators started playing it, and then that's what sparked a lot of other people to start playing it, and so now they're like able to actually work on the game more and do stuff. But I do think eventually when people start moving on, it's gonna like peak at a certain popularity, and it's gonna start like going back down.
See, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is another thing with like these popular like games that are like trends, and I want to go back to the original conversations like Fall Guys and Among Us, is what usually keeps like whenever you have this like massive shift in momentum like towards you, where like a lot of people start playing your game, your main thought should be like, okay, how I had this audience now, how do I retain it / grow it, right? Because gonna jump back a little bit more and say like whenever Fortnite released, that was like a massive thing. And what Epic Games very smartly did was they added new content into the game to keep players interested really, really quickly.
Yep.
And
I-
like that kept the game in relevancy. Like Fall Guys Season 2 is out and that's great, but I felt like this needed to happen sooner in order for it to gain their momentum. Like if it was like a month after it came out, then yeah, I'd say like perfect. They're keeping their game alive, they're keeping their players like interested, whatever like massive base that they have. But like again, and this is just me talking as a consumer, I have no information when it comes to development. Maybe this take like a lot more behind the scenes to make than I know of, but I felt like if they were able to like trickle out modes one by one, maybe, or it's like release a bigger update faster, because that's what Fortnite ended up doing. They're just like, oh, by the way, there's this new shotgun you can pick up now. It's like automatic and all that.
I personally think that this took way longer than it needed to.
Yeah, I think they need to have like a schedule of releases where it's like every 2 weeks we're gonna be releasing a new minigame type thing.
And like I don't believe they didn't have time to do it, because I watched a YouTube video on the man who basically recreated the entirety of Fall Guys in a week. So like
It's not a hard game to make, I don't think.
no,
Okay.
I think they wanted to like have this whole season thing and have like one bigger update than like just smaller additions. They did for the original game. They did like add in a mini game or two and like a different map or so for the like original before season 2, but it kind of just like was an update, and they were just like, hey, here's like some more content. But
I think it's
that
just the pacing of
wasn't
the
enough.
game, because like it's this awkward like pacing, and it's not a bad pacing, but it's like, so you load into the game, and like even if you get all the way to the finals and win, the game will probably take on average 15 to 20 minutes, right?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
But given that time, like let's say you get to the finals 50% of the time, so let's say like your average playthrough of each game that you load into is like 12 minutes.
And let's say I get second 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you're repeating the same mini games over an hour probably like 3 or 4 times. and it just gets very repetitive in that nature. Like, I think the lengths of the games, although it's like super nice and like something you could pick up for like a couple games and just leave, it also is kind of biting it in the butt where it's like, since it's not that many mini games, inherently over an hour of gameplay, you're going to be playing like the same mini games several times over. And
Yeah,
if
and
it's
even
not
in
a
that,
super well-rounded mini game, then it just becomes
mhm,
obnoxious to play at that point.
like the egg gathering one.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
even in that hour, there's also still that good chance that you don't play some of the mini games. You just continue to get repeats of the same ones you've seen over and
Yep.
over. Maybe you get a
Yeah,
new
that's a
one
good
here
point.
and there, but then you could still just not play like the spinning wheel one or something, or like the Viking axe one for season 2. There's just that chance that you don't play those mini games. So because of that, you just repetition of the other ones makes it way too similar.
And like I'm gonna go over like a few things here regarding season 2. And season 2 adds obviously cosmetics, a new battle pass, and then as for actual gameplay itself, it adds 4 mini games. And I was like, 4 mini games? I was like, really? And that just got me thinking. I was just like, this wouldn't be as much of an issue, but how do you miss out on doing something like a Steam workshop like for this sort of game?
Yeah, I do
Because I
think
Yeah.
feel
they
like this would be
are,
so
but
well suited for it.
I think they are going to do it. I think it does take a bit of like thinking behind the scenes of like what the actual go ahead for that would be, if it's front facing lobbies or if that's more you load into like custom lobbies like Overwatch has their custom games.
Mm.
Yeah.
I guess that's what they really need to see and like have. But like, think about games like Speedrunners, right? A game that's similar in essence, where it's very repetitive if you play the same way. But having those workshop maps, I feel like, does add up and spice a little. I do think Fall Guys has a much better potential of being enjoyable
I do
comparatively
Yeah.
to
agree.
Speedrunners, because that game's literally just the same thing over and over. But even then, I don't know. I'd
See,
like to see something else.
and Lucas Racevic, who's a person on YouTube, made an amazing video about this on Rainbow Six Siege, where Siege has the potential to have like a lot of fun game modes, right? Like people have done like Michael Myers, where you pick one character who has a hammer that one shots if you get to melee, and none of the other like people are allowed to like shoot back, and they're just supposed to like survive till the timer runs out, and all that. And like a lot of these games have a sandbox, and that sandbox has a lot of potential. But if the developers don't give access to the players for like having fun with that sandbox, to like make unique game modes and like other settings, I feel like a game dies off a lot faster because of that. Like one good example of
Mhm.
that is Halo 3. Halo is very well known for having the side mode, because it has the main campaign, multiplayer, and then something called the Forge. And essentially, the Forge is just this massive empty space where they give you access to every single thing that they have in the game. And a lot of popular game modes have spawned off this and become like official game modes. Like there is one that's called I'm sure I'm gonna get the name of this wrong. No, it's Griffball. It's called Griffball. And the
Hmm.
way that it works is
Wait, are you talking
essentially
about Halo?
yeah, I'm talking about Halo.
Yeah, yeah.
And Griffball is essentially like a game of soccer, except of like passing the ball to each other. One person has the ball till they get knocked out by this strong one-shot melee weapon called the gravity hammer, and it essentially becomes like this frantic game mode. But when you think of Halo, you don't think of soccer, but it's still just as fun.
Yeah,
Mhm.
no, I agree. It's actually very enjoyable to play that. So like, I've played that when the Halo game came out on PC, and that was like the only game that I enjoyed because it didn't have a time to kill of 3,000 seconds. Thank you.
No, I forgot those are your qualms with Halo, but I feel like when it
God.
comes to Fall Guys, like the way that you keep your community alive and active is by like either releasing content very very periodically, just be like, oh hey, yeah, we have another game mode releasing today, maybe like launch a separate playlist for it, try it out, have some fun with it, give the option for doing like private games where you can just get like a bunch of friends and you can do like a mini game selector like Mario Party style. And I feel like there's like lots of potential there. They just need to like push it more or go make that the focus.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I
And I think they definitely do have the potential to do so, both Fall Guys and Among Us. I think Fall Guys is doing it a little better, especially with the season 2, because not only are they adding in all these cosmetics, like this whole new season theme, the 4 new maps that they're doing, but then they also did what I was going to suggest they do, and I didn't realize they did because it was later in the video for it, is that instead of just the main show, there are other, like, shows that you can pick from, like Gauntlet Showdown, where it's only gauntlets, to like Slime Survivors, where it's just like only
Events involving
stuff.
slimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
And I think that was
yeah,
smart of
that's
them.
interesting. That will definitely help their like viability. It's just like, yeah, because I like playing like the gauntlet levels more, for example. Like
Mhm.
you can
Yeah.
just go towards that rather than be aggravated that you're never getting like a gauntlet level, or if you're like playing with friends and you never get like a team game mode, that
Yeah.
could also be aggravating. They could just make a playlist for that now.
And I
Yeah.
think the same thing of, I don't want to cut you off, but I think the same
No,
thing
you're good.
for Among Us as well, where people are already doing their own like modes and all
That
that
was
stuff.
exactly what I was about to
And
mention.
right now, Among Us just has the one same mode. Like you can change up the settings as much as you want and make your own
Yeah.
stuff. But I feel like if they just have like presets and some special stuff that actually change up the
That
game,
would be
than
cool.
just the
I
zero
can
mode,
see
that'd
them
be a lot
doing that.
cooler.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but, I know they've already expressed interest in making if you like your ghost, like making gameplay more interesting through that. And I don't exactly know how that would pan out, but a lot of Among Us is like air quotes side modes are just the main game with like a different set of rules that you and your friends agree to. It's nothing concrete within the game.
Yeah.
But you are still allowed to like adjust like timers and settings. You can like set the kill cooldown to be something really long, or like make the speed super fast and make the kill cooldown like 10 seconds, so everyone's just booking it and they all have to do like one task to win. Like that's like what I'm talking about when I say the sandbox, right?
Yeah. No, that would be awesome. I know that the developers said that they want to include stuff like that, so I'm sure it'll be coming in future updates.
Yeah. Just like I just want to cap off this like part with saying like both of these games have extremely bright futures. They just need to be pretty like very forward on supporting it.
Yep,
And
most
at the rate that
definitely.
it comes out.
Most definitely. But we are going to go into a couple promos for you guys really quick. For all of you guys listening in, if you haven't already followed us on our social media pages, it's going to be at Radio UTD across the board. So follow us for more info on some virtual events that we will be hosting this semester. As well, if you are interested in blogger applications for the fall semester, you can find them at radioutd.com under the forums tab on our website. So make sure to check in there. But we do have a deal of the week this week as well. Like always, this week it's actually going to be Overwatch being free to play for about a week, which is kind of cool. So if you haven't played Overwatch already, you can pick that up. It's for Nintendo Switch Online for a limited time. So that's the one gripe about it. But if you have a Switch and you haven't picked it up, you can just try it out on there. I don't know how good it would be on the Switch.
Yeah,
But
I was about to say, honestly, I might give it a shot just to see how Overwatch runs on the Switch.
Yeah,
Because
I'm pretty sure it's
the few of us have
terrible,
been
but
PC players forever, but it doesn't hurt to see.
yeah.
Yeah, might as well figure it out, you know?
But I mean, with the grand finals approaching, and just tomorrow actually, Overwatch grand finals are going to be happening. I believe it's San Francisco Shock against the Shanghai Dragons. So that's going to be an interesting match. But this kind of leads us into the next talking point, which is, what is your guys' opinions on casters, or even analysts for that matter, having or their lack of skill in the game that they're casting? So I guess to reiterate, do casters have to be good at the games that they're casting?
And the reason like this is a topic that was interesting to talk about was I saw this talked about recently in regards to Rainbow Six Siege, where essentially someone was like ripping on this one caster because they weren't that like physically good at the game, and I was just like, well, how much does that matter? I'm just like, well, like playing a game and talking about a game like we're doing are two very different things. I could talk about Rainbow Six Siege all day, doesn't mean I'm good at it. But if you ask me, do I think do casters need to be good at the game? No, but they still do need to know what they're talking about.
Yeah, I see it different, right? So like, if we're thinking about casters, I do think they need to be knowledgeable in the game, right? I don't think, however, they need to be good at the game. However, for analysts, I do think that they do have to be slightly better than casters inherently, because a lot more of analyst jobs are obviously analyzing the plays, giving a rundown of what they think could have been better, what went wrong throughout the rounds. And I think if someone's like, for instance, even just like a gold or plat in Rainbow, for instance, I don't think they have the right to like, not the right, that sounds like super like
That sounds
preppy.
super pretentious.
Yeah. But like I don't think they really have any knowledge on the game past what the pros are doing, if that makes sense. Unless it's like a super obvious mess up by the pros, I feel like they need to have someone at a high caliber of play that understands the game and that also potentially has coached in the past. But casters, I think like half of the casters are like hype casters, shout casters, what they call them. And as long as they know the game and they know some things about it, I feel like they could make it enjoyable. Take for instance Golden Boy, right? He's cast a variety of games, including Valorant, Rocket League. I'm pretty sure he's done Rainbow, Overwatch, and he knows a decent bit about it. Not a ton, but like a decent bit about it. And he's still able to make the casting enjoyable by his persona and by the way that he announces things and casts stuff.
Yeah, and I believe you also mentioned. I don't mean to cut you off. In the case you're saying something, I'll say something like really fast.
Oh,
I
no,
believe
you're
you also mentioned that there was a person who casted for Smite who's also moved on to
F-Dot.
Rocket League.
Yeah.
F-Dot, right? Yeah.
He's casted Smite, he's casted Valorant, and he's casted Rocket League, probably many more games as well. But it's just like, if someone is skilled at casting, regardless of the game, as long as they have some knowledge of it, they can make it enjoyable and make it a good stream to watch.
That's what I was gonna say. I think it's more of a skill set kind of thing, especially for casting. So analysts aside, for casting, if you're a good caster, or like Hector described, there's like categories versus you're like a shout caster where you hype up mostly, or there's like ones that are like analysts that act as casters as well, where you know the game a little more. I think having a good mix of both is what really brings out the best of games, because then you have the people who like know in depth what they're talking about, and then you have the people who kind of know what they're talking about but know how to like make it more interesting than just being very
Then like
analytical
just some like
about it.
surface level, like, oh, you got a kill there. Instead you could just be like, I'm gonna use Siege because Siege is the closest to what I know best. I would like, he went downstairs, pre-placed a C4, he had like a camera on him, and he got off the cam and blew it up. Like I can like give a little bit of in depth to that strategy. Just be like, oh my god, that was nuts.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's like that basic, but like,
I mean, yeah,
think,
I'm just giving like a very basic example.
like analysts like are typically, like Hitarth said, they can be casting, but for the most part, if they are casting a game like Rainbow Six, their main role is to talk between rounds or in the setup of rounds. Shoutcasters are typically talking in the action of everything. And more or less, they typically have a team of casters that cast the entire event. And then after the set is done, they go over to the analyst and they kind of talk about what their analysis is of the entire set that just happened, rather than a play-by-play.
Exactly. And I do agree with what you mentioned on how analysts should be like better players of the game than casters for sure, but maybe not to like a pro level, obviously, because then like why are they analyzing?
Then there would be
them at
like
that
no
point?
analysts basically.
Yeah,
But,
exactly.
like, I always enjoy, and I'll go back to Overwatch here, where they take like ex-pro players, like Jake for instance, and he becomes a caster / analyst for Overwatch League, and it's really enjoyable because it's like you see that being like super loved by the fans, right? Because like it's a pro player that everyone loved inherently. He's a super great guy, and he's also a really good caster. So like stuff like that, I always enjoy seeing.
And I feel like the one thing that kind of gets more or less overlooked when it talks about like analyzing and casters, and we a lot of time put casters in like people who talk about the game and like make it fun to watch and to listen to, like based on their commentary. But I think we all forget a lot that there's still a lot of nuance that goes into casting.
Yes, for sure. I mean, like, if you've ever tried casting, like, I think you've done it at Smash casually or anything
Yeah,
like that. It's
I
like,
did it once, and I was just like, honestly, it just ended up being me just blubbering at like a mic, and I was just
yeah,
like, I was talking. I don't know whether it was
it's
good.
hard. It is very hard.
I don't
I
know
would
whether it was
Yeah.
analytical or funny, but I was blubbering into a mic.
I would love to do it for a game like Rocket League. I wish I was better at Smash so I would have a more understanding of it because I feel like that game is like the perfect pace for casting where it's like it's fast enough to like keep saying stuff but it's also not too slow where it's like uh I don't know, like you have stuff to talk about always, but you can like slow down your pace of talking.
Yeah.
Whereas like Rocket League, it's very repetitive in nature, so it's kind of hard to form sentences that aren't the same thing just reworded.
Yeah, and that's honestly like one of the reasons because we were watching a Rocket League UTD match, and I was surprised like how they were able to cast that, where because a lot of it is like going through emotions till some sort of opening or play happen. Like somebody's clearing the ball, somebody's doing a 50. I'm just making up terms like out of my mind. I'm gonna let Hitarth take over unless I start talking like a fool.
Yeah. Yeah, we watched the entire match last night, and it's very interesting to see how analysts can just like or not analysts, sorry, the casters, how they do have a really good inherent knowledge of the game because some of the stuff they're talking about is like pretty high level things, but they make it so that average people can also just understand it as
That's
well.
me. I'm average.
And I think that's one of the biggest things is being able to like widen out your audience so everyone knows what you're talking about. And it does get to the point where some things are just too intricate to talk about. But for a game like Rocket League, it's kind of there isn't as much versus like for a game like Smash where it can get a lot more advanced, and that's where like casters need to have a lot wider range of knowledge for the game.
Yeah,
But yo, our Rocket League team popped off.
they
yesterday.
played well. 3-1 victory over I believe it's Long Beach State University. So
Yep. Good games overall.
they did
Long Beach
fantastic.
took the first game.
Barely.
Yeah,
Our
we had a
team was
rough start, and
they
then
had a rough
it was,
start,
It
yeah.
was night and day right after that, though.
yeah, it was just we had so much pressure on them versus Long Beach, but still good games overall.
There was one moment, I like finished watching the first game, and I was watching it with these two, and I had to like step away for a bit, and then I came back like 2 minutes into the next match, and we were up like 4. I was like, what happened? Like, what
Yeah.
did
The
like,
thing
a
about
different
Rocket
team all of a
League is
sudden?
it's just like the change of pace, like versus like Rainbow, for instance. If you take that game, it's like okay, that's gonna move like pretty like trend. Like the trend is like okay, if you're 0-3, most likely you're gonna lose the game, right? But like in Rocket League, it's like you're down 3. It's like anything can happen if there's time willing. So that I found that to be a really fun set to watch.
Speaking of time,
Mhm.
I think we're running out of it, so it's hard if you'd like to
Yeah.
talk about some new music.
Yep, no worries. We've got 3 new music coming up as always. I'm gonna butcher these, but first 2 are gonna be Voudon Fes and Emancipants by Yell. They're French songs. I'm sorry, I don't know French. It's from their album L'air der Versu. Whatever.
Right on.
Whatever. Both are really good upbeat dance pop songs that mix together electronic beats with their exciting pop energy. So I hope you guys enjoy those 2. And lastly, we have Oh Please by Sundressed. We've played them one of their songs before, also by the album Home Remedy. Like I said, I really enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoy it as well. It gives me a lot of Blink 182 vibes, so I hope you guys enjoy those.
All right, that sounds cool. I'll definitely be sure to give that a listen. Thank you all for listening. We're out of time. We will see you guys next week as usual. If you're going to go outside, stay safe, wear a mask, wash your hands. We'll see you guys later. Bye.
Take it easy.
Peace, guys.